I am so glad you convinced me that the family car should be the Defender 110. It is so beautiful inside, it's so comfortable, and it just feels indestructible.
Yes, it really is. I've been waiting a long time for the new model to come out. The Defender 110, I'm telling you, it's my favorite car of all times. It's my third one. You know, I have stories of going off road. The guy managed the group. He was like, "What are you doing in this beautiful car?" I'm like, "I'm going off road." He's like, "Are you sure? Because you can use one of ours." And then they look like Mad Max cars. I'm like, no, we're going to do this. And he was shocked.
Wow. Well, it's great because the Defender has been reimagined for 21st century adventure, and its unparalleled off-road ability as well as its robust interior are invaluable whether you're headed towards uncharted territory or just a weekend of exploration. The Defender 110 tackles challenging surroundings with absolute confidence. The SUV conveys strength outside and in, featuring peerless technology like an intuitive driver display and an award-winning infotainment system. That's my favorite part, to keep you connected no matter where the journey takes you. Adventure is unique to everyone, and so is the Defender. Choose from the two-door Defender 90, the four-door Defender 110, or the larger Defender 130 with the ability to seat up to 8 passengers. You'll find uncompromising performance in all three. So pack up and go even further with the Defender 110. Learn more at LandRoverUSA.com/Defender.
These days, we're all investors, trying to be smart with our money despite our worst impulses. But at iShares, we believe that deep down inside of every investor is a better investor. One that's just waiting to be let out. Explore iShares ETFs and insights and let your best investor out. Visit iShares.com for more information.
This isn't your average business podcast, and he's not your average host. This is the James Altucher Show. Today on the James Altucher Show.
I've always wondered, if you make a good amount of money, should you leave your kids all of the money, some of the money, none of the money? And it's confusing because you love your kids, and and it's not just that also. Should you die with zero? As my good friend Bill Perkins, who's made a whole bunch of money, wrote a book about it. He wrote a book called Die with Zero. And I wonder about that too, because what if, obviously you can't die with zero, because what if you lived one more day? Then how would you support yourself? But I get the idea of spending money down. Like, what are you saving the money for? What did you make the money for if you were never going to spend it? Well, you could say, well, I was making it for my kids, or I was making it for charity. And I'll tell you one story. I was once very good friends with the son of a well-known, famous billionaire. And he needed money one time. He wanted to buy a stock, and we were standing in his broker's office, who happened to be my broker as well. And he hadn't gotten his trust allowance yet. And he asked me if he could borrow some money. So I said, sure, no problem. And so the broker paid for the stock he wanted to buy out of my account. And then for the next 3 or 4 years, I was always asking him, hey, can I have that money back? Particularly, this was during a time many years ago where it went broke, and it was a significant amount of money. And he always said, yeah, of course. My family, has billions. We'll send you the money right away. And I never got the money. And ultimately, I'm afraid to say I gave up, and I just lost touch with him. And that was that. And so I guess he didn't have the money, or just because he was the son of a billionaire, his dad probably knew he was an idiot and didn't give him the money, or kept him on some sort of tight leash. I don't know. But, you could see that he was very privileged, very entitled, and he felt comfortable not paying me back. And I always worry, if you just give kids everything, they never have to worry. They never go through the struggle and the stress that I know I've been through. I've been through such enormous stress trying to meet my responsibilities as, a provider and a father and so on. I mean, times when I've gone broke, I've been not so scared about me. I figure I can live in a homeless shelter. I don't even care about myself as much as I care about, I don't want my kids to suffer, or I don't want them to have to, live in situations that could hurt them. And also, I don't want them to be, ashamed of me. Like, I kind of viewed my own value in the world as someone who could provide for them and make money and so on. And so when Bill talks about dying with zero, I think first about my kids. I think second about, how am I going to survive as I start spending down? Like, what sort of things do I really want to spend on? And it's interesting. No matter how much money you have, you always have to ask these questions, whether you're, a provider, or whether you have a certain lifestyle you want to live, or whether you want to leave money for your kids, and does that make them too entitled and they won't experience the struggle? And on the flip side is, the struggle is very painful. I don't want my kids to go through that. And so what's the balance? So fortunately, I had a chance to talk to Bill Perkins about this while he was on his yacht cruising, I guess, the Mediterranean through Croatia. Is it the Mediterranean, Jay? I don't even know. Is that the Mediterranean?
Yeah, Croatia.
Yeah, but is Croatia on the Mediterranean, or is there some kind of like Serbian Sea or something? I don't even know. I don't know. I told somebody the other day I majored in geography in college, which is like a ludicrous major, but I don't really know geography at all. So anyway, I talked to Bill well over a year ago, but the conversation always rings true today and any day. And also, there's a surprise guest on this podcast that was very surprising to me. So anyway, I hope you enjoy. So, Bill Perkins on the podcast. Bill, I've heard of you before. I mean, I was familiar with your work with John Arnold from way back. I used to be in the hedge fund business. As a way of introduction, you were a top trader for John Arnold, who's maybe the most successful trader in history. Would you say he traded energy and oil and all sorts of fun stuff down there in Texas?
Yeah, I mean, John is definitely probably the greatest commodity trader there ever was. He primarily focused on natural gas. I mean, they dabbled in oil, probably more personally than professionally for the fun. But he was pretty stoic and very analytical, and put a lot of hours into learning which way the price of natural gas was going to go, where the spreads were going to go, what vol was going to do. He did a pretty good job for his book and for himself.
Yeah, and you mentioned him briefly in Die with Zero, so I'm curious about that. But you wrote a book. It's coming out, Die with Zero, which is Getting All You Can from Your Money and Your Life by Bill Perkins. And the basic concept is, at different periods in your life, experiences are worth different amounts. So as you mentioned in the book, I'm just giving some basic examples, but like when you're 80 and you know you have a terminal illness, you much rather would have an experience than make an extra amount of money, because the amount of money is going to be useless to you. Whereas when you're 20, it's a little bit more complicated decision, how you balance making money and experiences and so on. And your point in the book is, any extra amount of time you spent earning money that is then sitting in your bank account when you die is kind of worthless. That time that you spent slaving away over whatever it is that you do, earning an extra X number of dollars, if you simply have it in your bank account when you die, that all that time was kind of wasted, is my interpretation of it.
You got it. You nailed it. Dead on the nose, right? And so what I'm trying to get people to do is utilize their resources, their money, right? Their time, mainly their time, correctly, right? And so you don't want to, if you could look from heaven or from the beginning and say, okay, this is what I'm going to spend, you would work those many hours for that money and not a second more, right? And what we have people doing is, for various reasons, mainly autopilot, which I believe, and habit, working for no reward, because it's money that they're receiving that they're never going to spend.
Right.
They're just gonna die, and it's gonna get taxed by the government or go off into cyberspace.
Yeah, or even going to the kids is, like I always say about my kids, I'm going to be dead, so I don't really care if they have money after I die. I mean, I care that they're happy, but happiness doesn't necessarily come from money. And you refer to this. It's not like I would leave my kids zero. you just figure it out. Like they don't need. They're probably going to be 60 years old when I die anyway. So presumably they figured it out for themselves by then.
Well, there's a couple of points that I talk about with kids. Is one, when I talk about dying with zero and using all the money that you have, I'm talking about your money, not your kids' money. So if you're going to leave something to your kids, there's an optimal time to give them that money. It generally, I will go on record and say, it's not when you're 85 and they're 61, right? That's not the optimal time to give your kids money, is when they're 61, right? So it's not at your deathbed. You want to basically figure out what you want to give them, have a plan for them, okay, and pick the time where the money will have the most impact on their lives. So, because one of the things we talk about in the book, which is true for you, is the same for your kids, is that your ability to convert your money into meaningful experiences declines over time, okay? And that's mainly because your mental facilities decline, your bone density declines, your health declines, et cetera. So there's a whole plethora of activities where your enjoyment of these activities starts to go down and down and down until you can't enjoy them and then you're dead, right? And so I'm talking about allocating your experiences properly throughout your life so that you get the maximum enjoyment, the maximum ride you can get. And that's true for your kids as well. We want to separate the money that's the kids for them.
Right. So with dying with zero, I think the big issue a lot of people have is that they're afraid that they'll get to zero before they die.
That's a huge fear. And
Even if they have, assuming they have savings, by the way, a lot of people don't have savings.
Yeah, but it's a huge fear, and I want to shift that fear. I'm not saying it's not valid, and these are things that we should prepare for and insulate against those risks. But people should fear not having the most wonderful, fulfilling, adventurous ride they could have, not fear running out of money, right? And because fear is a paralyzing thing, right? Like I have kids, when I was teaching them how to swim, they could swim back and forth, and then you try and put them in a deep end, and like, we can't swim there, it's deep. And it was just like this total block that somehow if the ocean was deep, they would just sink to the bottom, right? And which made no sense. And so people have this gnawing fear of running out of money, so much so that they don't live their lives when they have their health and vigor, and they don't chase their dreams, et cetera. And I'm trying to get those people like, oh, I'm saving. So, we have to save for survival, and we have to save for some variance. But being an insurance agent with a client of one is not rational, and it's not optimal, right? Like if you said, oh, this is an insurance firm, I'm going to invest in them. What would they have? They have one client. They'd be like, that's the worst insurance firm in the world, right? Like it's
Right.
totally inefficient. And so I try and get people to look at other ways to mitigate those risks and those fears, besides just fittering away their hours and oversaving.
So let's explain that analogy for a second, because it's really interesting. And I've never heard it put that way before. So when you say an insurance agency with a client of one, that's like me trying to decide how many years I'm going to live and then making all my decisions relative to how much money I need to make, given how many years I'm going to live and what experience I should have. So I'm like kind of becoming an insurance company where I'm the only client, and that's ridiculous because insurance agencies make a living doing the averages over large numbers of people.
Right. And if you look at insurance margins, right, like even if you bought an annuity or you can insure against other products, right, they have their margin in their business 6-8% tops, right? It's a levered business, right? Then they go lever it with treasuries and free money, and it looks like a 30% return. But really, like the edge is like 5 to 8% for an insurance product, right? Like if you bought a ring for your wife and you're like, hey, I want to get married and here's a ring, and the ring costs $1,000. You don't then go save $1,000 in case you lose that ring, right? That would be crazy.
Right.
Right. So that's kind of what people, are roundabout doing, super afraid of running out of money before they die. They have this stash of cash that they wind up dying with, and basically this unlived adventure that they never had.
Yeah. So I mean, there's two types of people making money, let's say. There's the people who are taking a job and they're making an annual income, and they don't sort of break out of that, and it's harder for them to kind of save significant amounts in X number of years so that for 20 years afterwards or 40 years afterwards, they could live off the savings. Maybe yes, maybe no. And then there's another type, there's kind of entrepreneurial, where they're really aiming to get that to a number as quickly as possible. And then they divide their life into two parts. One is the money-making part, and the other is the experience-having part. But what about the people who that first group, the people who they're making a living, they're working as, a marketing manager at Procter & Gamble, and then they're a marketing director, and then a marketing VP, and blah, blah, blah.
I think, all of us have, in varying degrees of time, health, and money. These are the resources, right? And a lot of times I think the people you're describing in this example are people who are exchanging their time for money, right? They don't have a big savings, right? They still have their health, right? And what I talk about in the book is basically balance and getting off autopilot. There's nothing wrong with going to make money and saving up for the future and delayed gratification for some trip or your survival number. Basically, I'm going to stop working when I'm 65. I need at least X to survive after that fact. And that's all fine and dandy. What I'm trying to get people to do is also think about, listen, certain experiences are not for after 65, right? And it depends on who you are, right? I can't say that this particular experience is not for after 65 for this person. I'm just saying, in general, on average, there's going to be a bucket of experiences that are meant for your 20s, that are meant for your 30s, that are meant for your 40s, 50s, and so on, depending on who you are. And if you're delaying that gratification for those events to 65, that means you'll never have them.
Right.
And so we have to constantly check in with ourselves and go, okay, I know I need to save for survival. That's the experience all of us want to have forever. We want to survive. But above and beyond survival, we want to have these wonderful experiences, right? And during each period of our life or time bucket, there are certain experiences that's the season. Like my glow stick days, they're pretty much over, right? Like if I didn't go to the club and glow stick it up and have fun or whatever, I'm pretty much done with glow sticks, And I either I did it and I had fun and I can relive those experiences and cash in on what I call the memory dividend, or I didn't do it and I'll never do it and it's over, right? And so I'm getting people to seek out their own balance and to get off autopilot of not just let me grind, let me get to a number, etc. The purpose of money is for the acquisition of experiences. And that could be charitable experience. They don't have to be all hedonistic and clubs and glow sticks and shit like that, right? And so, it could be you want to go help a village in Azerbaijan or Africa or wherever, right? But it's identifying those experiences that we want to have and acquiring the capital in order to do those experiences. And there is a time for each one of those. We got a stranger in the back. Dan Bilzerian just jumped in.
Dan Bilzerian.
You're not on video, Dan.
I'm trying to get good lighting. Oh, I'm not on video.
No.
When are you going to
can
do
just
another
talk.
prop bet? When are you two guys going to do another prop bet?
He's asking when we're going to do another prop bet.
Oh, God. I don't know.
I can get him to swim someplace out here. I mean, we're right now we're off the coast of Croatia, so
For
maybe
my health, hopefully no time soon.
Coast of Croatia, are people allowed to leave there or get there?
You're definitely allowed to get here. Croatia, I got some feedback about, some people like, oh, can you come here or not or whatever? And it's just like, a simple Google search will let you know that Croatia is open for business.
Yeah, if you're Bill Perkins and you rent a 220-foot yacht, then you can go to Croatia. That's the small.
No, that's your. No.
Just to repeat,
commercial.
Dan Bilzerian said if you're Bill Perkins and you have a 224-foot yacht, you could go to Croatia. I agree with that.
That's true, but you could also go Croatia commercial. You have to now have passed a negative COVID test, I think, within 48 hours of landing. So that's the new rule they just implemented. But they are open for business.
All right. Why are you guys in Croatia? Why did you choose there?
It was one of the few places that was open for business, and it had a great coast. I saw the pictures. I'd never been here, except for one time I came to a friend's bachelor party way back when. I went to VAR. I don't remember a thing. It was like a bachelor party. You know how those things can go. And so I was like, okay, let me actually go see Croatia, and it's beautiful. It's awesome.
And are you guys playing poker there or anything?
We've been playing other games and cards. We got a group. We were going to play some cards tonight, but I told them I can't. I got a podcast going on.
Excellent. So okay. So a lot. I feel like a lot of my life was spent miserably because I was valuing accumulating enough money to survive, without thinking of experience. And it's only when I started blending, like I gave up on that goal and I started blending, having experiences and not focusing as much on money, that I experienced a lot more happiness in life, and B, I actually experienced more money making opportunities because I had time. And time actually is a valuable commodity to make money.
Yeah, I think what you did was you got off autopilot, right? And you found your balance, whatever it is. And a lot of times, we have to be focused. We have to get there. We have to survive, right? So that's a good thing, right? You developed habits that made you successful, right? And you went into the grind. What happens, I think, with a lot of people is that they just stay, they stay focused, they stay in these habits, and they forget the goal, right? The goal was to have an enjoyable, fulfilling life, right? They wanted to have like the best ride they possibly can. And pretty soon they're like a hamster in a wheel, just running and running and running for no cheese, right? Like you don't even have to give the rat cheese anymore after a while. You just let it run. And they forget why they were running in the first place, or why, in our cases as human beings, why we were working, why we really got good at computers, why we went into this trade, why we went into this profession, right? Like people didn't go into commercial real estate. Yeah, they might like it a little bit and they like making deals and there's some social aspect out of it, but they're in commercial real estate for the money. And the money is not just for it to be on a screen like, Mario Brothers high score. It's there for you to convert it into experiences and your journey and fun and connecting with people and friends and the world and making an impact. And somehow along the way, the abstract of the money creates this disconnect from what the ultimate goal was, which was a kick-ass, fulfilling life.
And so with you at the age of 25, I guess you started working with John Arnold. You mentioned he kept going. He said, "Stop me when I hit 15 million." And then he kept going, 25 million, 100 million. He still wasn't stopped. And now, I mean, I don't know what he's up, but it's probably billions. Do you think he made a mistake?
I mean, I think he enjoyed what he was doing and he didn't calibrate correctly. But I do believe in the end, he worked past the utility. He worked way past the amount of money that he will ever spend, or they'll ever get to enjoy, or that he'll ever get any kind of utility out. So at the end, work became not enjoyable to him. It sort of lost its purpose, right? And it's like, what am I doing here? And why am I wasting my time, my mental capacity on solving which way natural gas is going to go, et cetera, when I can be solving the world's problems or this issue or that issue. And so he left trading to go into philanthropy full time and tackle more interesting problems that he actually enjoys attacking, things that he always wanted to do.
And so you can argue that he needed to make the billions to do something which is very satisfying to him. Like maybe philanthropy is the most satisfying experiences he could have.
I can't speak for John directly, right? But I could say that at a certain point, I don't think he'll spend his billions before he dies, and the impact won't be made before he dies. And so, right. Yes, I guess he could say, I wanted to work for future generations to take this money to impact people for future problems. That was not a conscious thought in his head, right? Like we can backwards adjust it and say, oh yeah, he had to do this. But, I would argue that the last year and a half to 2 years of trading, it was unenjoyable for him. And it was producing no benefit whatsoever that he'll ever get to reap from it, because he will die with that money. His foundation will die. He will die before his foundation runs out of that money, et cetera.
So at what point did you realize, like you were a trader, then you ran a hedge fund. At what point did you say to yourself, man, I am just not having fun anymore. I'm going to go on my yacht to Croatia.
So I was trying to find balance. So we when even earlier on, even when I was working for Centaurus, I was kind of like, even the path I chose, the reason why I got into commodities is that I just did not want to be a suit going into office checking in every day. Like it just seemed like, I went to school for electrical engineering, but I knew I didn't want to do that, right? Because it just seemed like misery to do that, right? Just go in, check in. This is your career path. They would lay it out to you in career day. Like, this is what you do. You work this many years, whatever. And I was just like, oh my gosh, fucking kill me. This is horrible, right? Like, it's not my spirit. Like, for certain people, that'd be like, this is awesome. Everything's laid out for me, whatever. For me, I was just like, this sucks balls. And so, sorry, I shouldn't have said that.
No,
But
it's all right. This is the Wild West of podcasts.
This is Wild West of podcasts. And so I saw trading and I thought, oh my gosh, this is it. There's, guys in casual wear yelling and screaming and figuring things out, and they're making money. And I was just like, arrogant kid. I'm like, well, if he could be a millionaire, so can I, that type of thing. And I always looked at the career path as a way to acquire capital so that I could do whatever I wanted, right? To go have an adventure. And so even when I was working at Centaurus, the technology in the world was changing such that, internet was there and you could trade remotely and, whatever 1G became 2G and 2G became 3G. And so we had an office where, listen, you're responsible for your position. You have your book, you trade. We don't care. As long as you make money, you're all right. You lose money, you're out. And that was kind of the way it was. And so I always found a way to, one, be able to remote in and get all the information and trade and be responsible, but basically change my office space, right? So my office space would be the world. And I wanted to see the world and I wanted to get out and I wanted to, enjoy my time. I didn't want to be one of these guys that, slaved away and then, 65 or whatever it was, 55, even if early at 55 or late at 65 goes on a Carnival cruise and be like, whoopee, this is it. That was not in my plans whatsoever. I was becoming aware that, I want to live life. I want to live life of a 25-year-old or a 27-year-old. And when I was in my 30s, I want to live the life of a 30-year-old. Whatever my version of that is, people in the audience, they'll have their own version of that, right? And so I've always been seeking that balance. I never really get it right, but I keep trying to seek it out.
So you mentioned in the book, there's three things. There's money, time, health. And, in your 20s, you have health and time, but not necessarily money. And it starts to change, in your 30s and 40s where you have a little bit more money, but a little less health and actually no time because of the responsibilities. And then when you're older, you have time and the money you've accumulated through savings or whatever, but now you have no health, so that limits you from certain experiences. So a lot of people listening to this, they might be in their 30s, their 40s, and they might feel like, well, what do I do? I'm in the middle of, I live a lifestyle. Let's say someone's listening to this, they say I spend $100,000 a year, but now my job pays me $200,000 a year, so I'm putting a little bit in savings. And by the way, you bring up a really great point early in the book, which is that young people should not save because their earnings potential is going to go up so much faster than their savings account is going to go up. And I try to tell this to people all the time. No one ever listens because they think even developing the habit of saving is good. So good points on telling young people not to save because their earnings are going to go up so much faster than their savings. But listening to this, someone spends $100,000 a year, but they have a steady job making $200,000. What do? They hear what you're saying. They want to have more experiences. They're getting bored of their job. Everybody is going through this great reset right now with this lockdown. How should someone think about this now?
Yeah, I tell people I'm very adamant in the book. Like, I'm not telling you how to live. I'm just telling you how to think about living, right? Like, so what I tell people to do is get off autopilot. Just take down a piece of paper. Next 5 years, what experiences do you want to have? Not what you've been trained to think you want, right? Not what you think a rich guy should be doing or whatever your guys be doing, but what do you want to do? What experiences do you want to have that are perfect for this bucket. And you should compare that for the next 5 years and the next 5 years. And what you see is you start dropping activities. Like, say, I want to climb Mount Everest, or I want to get married, or I want to go to grad school, or I want to go motorcycling across India, or whatever they are, right? I want to go lead a choir, learn the code. Start sprinkling them in these H buckets. And really, after you get off autopilot and you think about, okay, from now to the grave, these are the experiences I want to have in 5-year increments, loosely. It could be, I want to have, and get down to the granular. I want to have sex 100,000 times, and I want that to be 20,000 times between now and here, 10,000, whatever, right? Like, list them all out. What you're going to find is you're going to have a curve, right? You're going to have an activities curve, which is going to correlate to your spend curve, which is going to tell you when you need to save, right? And what you need to save for, or whether you're under saving or over saving.
And also this is going to be a map also on time. So let's say your current job gives you 2 weeks of vacation a year, and 1 week you spend with your kids, and another week you might do other things. And let's say you have your bucket for the next 5 years includes climbing Mount Everest. You really only have 5 more weeks in your life to climb Mount Everest.
Correct. And so, like, you can overlay your situation on this, and you're just going to get realistic, and you're going to go, holy shit, maybe I need a different career, or maybe I need to quit this job, or maybe I need to save more, or maybe I need to do X, Y, and Z. The point is that not for me to tell you how you should be living your life, but for you to get off autopilot, realize you want out of life, and make sure you approach it so you don't miss out, right? Like, if you're single and you're like, I want to get married and have kids, maybe the Everest should come before that, right? Because, right?
Then your time is going to go away.
Yeah, correct. And so, those are dynamic decisions, right? Like, what you had for breakfast this morning, that one breakfast, whether you had a coffee or not, is not a dynamic decision. It's not going to affect every single other decision in your life. But when you get married and you have kids, that's a dynamic decision. It affects every other subsequent decision in your life, right? You're switching switches on and off that you had no idea that you were switching on and off. And I learned that. And I think all parents learn that, right? Like, as soon as you have kids, it's like, holy shit, you didn't realize I made 30,000 decisions with one decision of having a kid. But anyway, just going through that exercise of bucketing your life. Like, people have, I have a bucket list. Before I die, I want to do this. And they have this idea, like, just before they're going to die, or 5 years before they die, they're going to run around and tick off the boxes. It's not how it works, okay? Your health is declining from 33, right? I guess 33 to 40 is like physical maturity, and 40, it's in decline. I mean, if there was a doctor on the line, he's like, nope, you're declining right at 33 or 34, whatever it is. And
that sucks. That's 20 years ago for me and for you.
I know, but it's like, you know how it is, like, whether you play basketball, hockey, or whatever it is, the memory of playing basketball or hockey or whatever it is actually greater than playing hockey today. Right? Like, if I got on the field and tried to play football right now, it'd be miserable compared to my memories of playing football 20 years ago, right? So thank God I played, 20 years ago. Who am I kidding? 30 years ago. You know what I mean? Right. And so, like, 32 years ago. Who am I? I'm kidding myself again. But anyway, you get the point, is that we need to slot these experiences in the proper time they're meant to be had, depending on the person. And only you could sit down and slot those experiences properly.
Oh my gosh, I love these clothes. Mizzen and Main. That's Mizzen and Main. It really is the most comfortable work clothes. Travel clothes. I had to travel this whole week. I'm traveling for a week and a half, and I just took Mizzen and Main clothes with me. Close out 2023 in style with comfortable, breathable, packable, and machine washable pieces from Mizzen and Main. As you wrap up your year-end goals, enjoy a Mizzen and Main dress shirt that you can wear confidently. I like that they've very, very just nice, solid colors. I don't really like to get all fancy in patterns and everything, although they do have some pattern shirts, but very comfortable clothes, stretchable pants. It's just super comfortable, but they look professional, and you can wear them casually or professionally.
I like some of their flannel shirts, or untuck shirts. I love untuck. I never tuck in. So again, whether you're shopping for a special someone or giving yourself the gift you really want, I just buy myself gifts. Mizzen and Main is the perfect gift for any guy who works, travels, and or cares about looking and feeling great. As you could tell by my many photos across the internet, I care about looking fantastic. I'm practically a model. And let's be honest, every guy loves to look great. So again, shop now at mizzenandmain.com and save 20% when you spend $130 or more using promo code James. That's promo code James at Mizzen and Main, Mizzen and Main.com.
You know what I love about fantasy sports is that even though I'm not going to be a great basketball player or a baseball player or a football player or whatever, I feel like I get to participate and make decisions and use my knowledge of these different leagues or these different sports to compete. So it's like I can pick my team or I can pick my favorite players and I could use my knowledge to make predictions and maybe even make money. So with the basketball season here, you can now pick combo projections across football and basketball from the Specials League on Prize Picks. This is a league created specifically for combo projections that include two or more players from different sports or leagues. Want to play alongside some of Prize Picks' favorite players like rapper Meek Mill and comedian Andrew Schultz, who's also been a guest on this podcast, and I've been a guest on his? You can now find community plays under the promos tab of the app to view entries for some of the biggest names in the Prize Picks community each week. Look, Prize Picks even offers a reboot policy so that your entries stay in play even if one of your players gets injured. For football and basketball games, if you have a player who exits the game in the first half and does not return in the second, that player is rebooted. Prize Picks is the only daily fantasy sports platform with an injury insurance policy. What? So I love playing it. I love anywhere where I can use analytical ability with my interests to demonstrate some skill and maybe make some money. And I like the game-like aspect. I do wish they had chess as a category on prizepicks.com, but I'll settle for what they've got. Maybe I should make my own fantasy chess league. But in any case, I love Prize Picks. Go to prizepicks.com/James. Use code James for a first deposit match up to $100. That's the easiest $100 you're ever going to make. So that's prizepicks.com/James and use code James. Daily fantasy sports made easy.
The future of learning is definitely online. Like, it's such BS that you have to spend $200,000 or take $200,000 in loans and go to some fancy school when it's useless. It doesn't guarantee you a job. Most employers, including me, do not care about degrees or grades or anything like that. We want to care that you love what you're doing, that you know what you're doing, in some cases that you have experience or that you're willing to learn. But people in general love learning and are curious. Like, the key to success is curiosity. And I think masterclass.com is the perfect model for online learning. I'm really happy they're sponsoring this episode. If you're going to give a gift, give the gift of learning. Masterclass makes a meaningful gift this season for you and anyone on your list, because both of you can learn from the best to become your best, from leadership to effective communication to cooking. Let me tell you some of the classes I've taken. I've taken comedy from Steve Martin. I mean, can you believe I can take a class from Steve Martin on comedy, or Judd Apatow, my favorite comedy director? I could take an actual class from him on writing. Wolfgang Puck on cooking. Dan Brown on writing, or Judy Bloom, who's been on this podcast, on writing. By the way, Wolfgang Puck also has been on this podcast. It's such a pleasure. I try to take classes all the time from masterclass.com. And whether you're watching Masterclass on TV or listening in audio mode in the app or on their site, the quality speaks for itself. It's like these Masterclass instructors are your own personal mentors that are going to help you reach the next level. How much would it cost to take one-on-one classes on comedy from Steve Martin or on chess from Gary Kasparov? You just wouldn't be able to do it. But it would cost hundreds of thousands of dollars. With a Masterclass annual membership, It's $10 a month. Memberships start at $120 a year for unlimited access to one-on-one classes with all 180 plus masterclass instructors. So it's not just $120 for one instructor. You get all 180 plus masterclass instructors. Boost your confidence and find practical takeaways you can apply to your life and at work. And if you own a business or are a team leader, use Masterclass to empower and create future-ready employees and leaders. That's the real education in today's world. So this holiday season, you can give one annual membership and get one free at masterclass.com/JAS. JAS, of course, stands for the James Altucher Show. So right now you can get 2 memberships for the price of one at masterclass.com/JAS. Masterclass.com/JAS. Offer terms apply.
When did you kind of make the decision, all right, I'm not going to devote my resources to expanding my net worth anymore. I'm going to focus on other experiences?
I mean, to me, it was a balance. Like, if people are like, oh, I love my job. I'm like, keep working. Just make sure you keep spending, and you get those other experiences. Enhance your experience. Like, figure out a way to use your resources so you supersize your life to the best of your ability. And this goes for every income bracket, right? Like this goes like you always have a choice, right? Like, some experiences don't cost money, right? Whether you decide that I'm going to get off my couch and go for a walk with my daughter in the park, or whether I'm just going to sit down and watch, Top Chef or whatever the show is of the day, right? Like, these are choices that we have to make, and realize that this time is fleeting. Like, the walk in the park with your daughter, that's not going to happen, 10, 15 years from now, right? Like, the time will pass. And so, I made the choice that my life was more important than the money, right? The money was a tool to enhance my life. And I wanted to make sure I was using that tool properly, right? And so it's not like I didn't want the money. It's not like I don't want to accumulate money. But as soon as I get that money, when I'm working for money, I'm like, what experience is this going to? Sometimes it's going to charitable things, right? IRC, International Red Cross, Days Foundation, whatever the charity in the moment. Sometimes it's to be the insurance agent of last resort for my family, right? Most of us, like, who've become very successful, you are the insurance agent of last resort for your family, whether you like it or not, right? And so, and that's, travel given home. And some of it's just, hey, I want to go rent a boat off of Croatia and explore a new culture and meet new people and see beautiful things. And, that's part of it as well. And so for each person at each resource level, you're going to have your own set of choices to make. And what I'm trying to get people to do is make sure it's a choice, not autopilot. That's the main thing. Get off autopilot.
Yeah, I think the autopilot is a great analogy or mantra here. And also, there's kind of this idea that experiences in many ways are greater than possessions.
By and large, I've found that the experiences that you have, you interacting with people, going to see things, adventures you tried and failed, right? That makes your life interesting and fulfilling. When you go sit down with friends, like, most of the time you're talking about past events, things you've had, right? And you're creating new memories off that experience, so that memory dividend of those experiences that you had compounds, and you get to enjoy them again and again and again and again throughout your life. So they pay dividends.
I like this analogy of viewing experiences as almost like investments, so that they pay dividends, they compound. You could lose too, but then you learn and hopefully make more in dividends from the loss of in an experience. Like if an experience is a sad one.
Yeah, I mean, the ultimate experience is that learn how to navigate the world. When you walk up to a door, you know how to turn the knob because you have the experience of opening a door, right? And it pays dividends every single time you go up to a door, right? Mm-hmm. That's the most rudimentary example of the memory dividend, paying out, right? But it also happens like the time you played on a sports team and you had camaraderie and you hit the home run and, you have fond memories of your first kiss. of the time you went on a date and the girl told a joke and the milk came out your nose, and then you tell that story and people laugh, and then the next time you tell that story, that creates a new memory and it compounds. And so investing in experiences pays a dividend, right? It pays a dividend. Like when I talk to you, I'm like, hey, how'd that movie go that you're trying to make a #1 movie this week, in Florida?
I think we hit number 8 in the country.
Congratulations, right? And then, that soundtrack might, win a best Oscar for best song or something like that, right? Like, because, and that's going to pay a dividend. You're always going to remember, I made this movie, this was the process of making it, et cetera. You'll be telling this story 15 years from now, and you'll be getting enjoyment out of it 15 years from now.
It's true. Like, I think about this in terms of, I like to think of life as a series of experiments. So an experiment is something that has very little downside. Like, I can easily do it and experience it, and potentially huge upside. And at the very worst, I learn from it and I can tell a story about it. So that, like you say, it pays dividends in a variety of ways. And this is like a way of diversifying experiences by viewing them as experiments.
You think about it, when you're saving, right? You're saving the money for something, right? For some delayed gratification, right? So you're getting a return on your investment, and you're going to eventually turn that money into something that you were saving for, some experience. You're delaying gratification for a reason, but ultimately, if you delay gratification to the extreme, it's no gratification. You basically save for nothing, right? And so what people fail to realize is that just as money in the bank pays a return and a dividend, so do experiences. And the return on those are actually greater than the dividends in the bank and market returns.
Right. So you talk about this concept, what you call peak net worth. And this is similar. There was a book like 15 years ago, I think it was called The Number, which was, what number do you need to retire? And you basically work out this formula differently of what peak net worth is, essentially what the number is, because you're assuming, of course, that someone should die as close to zero as possible. Maybe not exactly, but that's the aim. And so maybe let's walk through this formula real quickly, because it was interesting, and I have some questions about it.
So the one thing, the one experiences that we were modeling is, we know that people, the number one thing they want to do is survive, right? So we got to calculate what your survival number is, right? That's the number that we're saving for, whether it's in our 20s, 30s, 40s, we're saving for that. That is that's common amongst everyone. And then after that, it's for experiences. So whatever experience you want to have, right? The bigger house, the yacht, put my kids through college, I don't know, right? Give to this charity, etc. But at the end of the day, in order not to waste the hours of our life and waste our time here on earth, we should use all our resources before we die. And I'm saying, once again, for those who are tuning in late, your money, not your kids' money. Your kids' money, you've already given it to them. You already set it aside into trust. You're not spending your kids' money, okay? We're talking about your money, okay? And so since your body declines and your health declines, right? And your ability to consume experiences declines with age. And also whether you can do them or not necessarily whether you can do them or not, but your enjoyment of them declines, right? There is a natural curve to the utility of money, right? And so what you find out is that as we're sloping down to zero and we're trying to match this optimal curve, there is a date in your life, not a number, but a date at which your net worth should peak.
So you're saying basically there's you figure out what the costs, what your spending is going to be from now until the end of your life, and you could extrapolate that many things. What is the day you have to retire before, if you're going to spend at a certain amount, given a certain net worth, and given a certain amount of interest you're going to get on your money, and given these experiences, you're going to spend this amount per year, and so on. And that's how you build the formula for calculating your number. Where at the end, at the day you die, you have zero.
Yeah, I mean, well, I go a little bit differently. So I go to, like, you have to know that you have to have an estimate of the day you're going to die, right? So you have an estimate. I'm going to die in 36 years, right? That's my estimate, right? And I'm going to start working. I will have no income whatsoever in, let's say, 20 years or 15 years, right? So I need to know what I start to calculate is what is my survival number? Not my I'm going out, Starbucks every day, hanging out, going to movies, yachting around number, but what is like I have a roof, shelter, food. I could take care of myself, okay? Then I start to say, okay, now after that's calculated, I save for that number, right? After that, it's experiences, right? It's just experiences on top of that. Going to the opera, going skiing, renting a yacht, renting a car, driving up the coast, whatever the experiences are. And I start to allocate these experiences properly. But on top of that, what's hacking these experiences down is that I can make more and more money, but let's say it's just the day before I die and I can't move, I'm in a bed, etc., right? I'm not putting experiences to that day. I'm consuming now. And so based on your health decline and how in shape you are, your net worth should peak at an age. It's a number. It's not a dollar amount, but it's a date, right? Because making more money goes against the resistance of the decline of health and your ability to convert that money into positive life experiences, as I call them. I go in the book about calculating your survival number, and I talk about like putting experiences in the right bucket, but it requires, it's like an NP problem, but solvable. You're a computer science, right?
Yeah.
Like
I can tell electrical engineering coming through.
It requires a computer to run all these simulations, right? Basically to live your life 1,000 times or 1,000,000 times or whatever it does. And it says, this is the optimal path you can get based on this health decline curve, right? This interest rate, right? And this should be your spend curve. And it'll calculate it and it'll say, okay, your net worth should peak on this day. Right. And from then on, you can suspend. Right.
So this is the way I used to calculate it. And it's different from your book, but your book is persuading me. So I would say, let's say, I'm just making up numbers now, but let's say I'm 50 and I'm going to live to 80 roughly. And let's say I'm pretty healthy. So a lot of experiences I could still have. Let's say my basic expenses might be $100,000 a year, but then I know the extra experiences are going to be $200,000 a year, although that might decline. Let's assume it doesn't decline for a while. And then I would think to myself, okay, I got to multiply that by 25, 200,000 by 25, because I think to myself, I'll be able to make 4% after taxes per year. And so this way I don't touch whatever, that number is, $5 million, 200 times 25. But you're saying, and all these numbers are just making up for the heck of it.
Right.
You're saying the number in the book, you say the number is roughly 70% of it's like in that particular example I gave, would be more like 3.5 million because it's okay to decline. And I've never been comfortable with the decline thing because what if I live to 120? What if they make medicines and I get stem cells and boom, I'm living to 150?
Yeah, I mean, then you should contract your local insurance agents and look for an annuity to insure against you living too long, right? Like you don't need to be the insurance agent for you living too long, right? Everybody's familiar with the insurance agent for you dying too soon, right? But they have insurance products for you living too long.
But then I get afraid of inflation.
Well, I mean, in the book, all the numbers are inflation adjusted, right? And so we're talking about that. But if you want to inflation hedge, right, go against that in your savings, like first of all, you're not like the data is out there for you to look at seniors, like even with medical costs, because I get this a lot, right? Like, oh, what about the medical costs? And I'm saving for this. Even with medical costs skyrocketing, seniors spend less year after year the older they get. Okay. And it's just, that's the way it is. They talk about the go-go years, the slow-go years, and the no-go years, right? And that's what happens to people. It's like you just lose the ability to convert your capital into experiences, and it just winds up sitting in a bank, and you wind up dying with it. And so when you're like, oh, I need 200,000, I'm like, if you were spending, If your experience bucket is full and you're spending 200,000 at 40 or 50, there's no shot you're spending 200,000 at 75. Right? Like I'm laying odds against that. I'll start an insurance company. Yeah, there'll be an outlier. This guy, Jack Lane, or, David Goggins or whatever. Like he'll be, David Goggins will still be running around doing everything.
He's going to be 15 years old then.
Exactly. He's reverse aging. But, by and large, for more than a supermajority of people, you will spend less as you get older, right? Your time is going to be spent watching reruns of Jeopardy and eating tapioca pudding, and I'm
that's what I do now.
Extreme. Exactly. That's a little extreme. That's a little unfair. But what it is that your health and your taste, it's not just your health, it's your taste change over time. And you just don't spend that much. And it's not like I'm making this up. It's just in the data. It's in the census data. There's tons of data out there. There's private wealth managers that talk about how they have problems getting older couples to decumulate, right? To spend down their assets. And they just don't. You can look at the census data. It's like, why are 70 to 75-year-olds, why is their net worth going up? Like, what are they saving for? Like, when does the party start? That's what I think. It's like, wait, when's the party going to start? And what happens is the party passed them, right? The party passed them. So when you say I need 200,000 and I don't need to dip into the principal, I'm like, no. Like right here is the golden years, right? You're 40 to 65. These are the real golden years.
So it's interesting because during the golden years, let's say you're working for a bank like Goldman Sachs, there's often kind of this Wall Street trap, I call it, where, all the other partners are living in, super expensive mansions in Greenwich, and they're flying their helicopters or planes down to the Bahamas on their vacations. So you get trapped in this lifestyle. Oh, and by the way, your bonuses and options that vest in 6 years, they kind of have this way of reeling you in. And I'm taking Goldman Sachs on one end, but every job does this to some extent. People tend to spend what they make, even if they don't really love those experiences that much. Nobody really needs the 18-bedroom house in Greenwich, but they do it because that's what all their peers are doing, so they feel it's part of their career.
Yeah, I think that's basically one of the forms of autopilot and how they get you, right? Like, I mean, I'm enjoying life because there's people out there who've like been habituated into slaving away in some job, putting out some product, making something free, some app I'm using, whatever, and they're not living their life. They're freaking in a dark room coding for more and more money that they're never going to spend. And I'm like, that's great scam. You actually have a slave there. He's a well-kept, gilded slave, right? Like he's got a nice mansion, right? And whatever, but he is working, and you keep throwing digits into this bank account, right? This whatever, but he's never going to touch it. He's never going to spend it, and he's going to keep producing for me, right? Because he's on autopilot. He's just chugga, 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 chugga.
So what's a good way? I mean, so you're talking about a mindset change, but often it's very difficult to think your way into a mindset change, like because you have no experience with the habits. Like someone could be listening to this saying, he's right, I'm going to change. But then it's very hard to change the physical habits. You could change your thinking, but you might not be able to change your actions. And so what are some things, some easy steps someone can take to get into the autopilot where they could start even doing the math? Like we almost went too fast into the math of how to calculate this out.
This is a great question, and I'm gonna talk a little bit out of school. So I actually took a behavior design class recently by BJ Fogg, right?
Oh, great guy.
And so
Tiny Habits, good book.
Yeah, great book. And so I actually took a boot camp. I went to a boot camp. It was like, I think it was 3 weeks long, and we went over behavior design. And essentially, I would recommend pretty much what he recommends. First of all, no behavior happens without a prompt. That means like a thing to go do it. Like call your mom, right? Usually it's internal. I remember to call my mom, but external prompts are better, right? Because you can forget. So no behavior happens without that. So I would say, hey, post a sticky note somewhere and then take a tiny step towards what your goal is, right? Because you're motivated to change. Obviously, like, I want to change, I want to do this or whatever, and make it something that's very easy or something that you can do. It doesn't have to be very easy to do, but something that you have the ability to do. And just take tiny steps towards making those changes. So that's how behavior design and how you break these habits is by creating these new ones and making a step towards your goals. Tiny steps. But the first thing you need to do mentally is just be aware that, wow, I am actually on a treadmill that used to be good. It got me in shape. And I used to get rewards. They used to give me cheese, but somehow the cheese is just piling up in the back of the room right now, right? And I'm still on this treadmill. That awareness is the first step. So you have to kind of mentally get off autopilot, and then you have to take deliberate steps to get the most out of your damn life that you possibly can.
What would be an example, little step? And again, I understood that you don't know, you're just guessing about someone's lifestyle, but just guess, make up a human who's making 150 a year as a middle manager somewhere.
I'll just use myself as an example, right? I will go down the rabbit hole of research on anything, right? Of the nth degree, right? When I'm trading natural gas, which I still do, I go to the nth degree. Oh, these companies are going bankrupt. Well, how many companies are going bankrupt? Well, let's look at the bankruptcy reports. Well, what is it, whatever? And I'll go down there, whatever. And I'm like, you know what? I got analysts, push it off to them, close the computer. Let me ask my daughters how their day was going. I mean, they barely talk to me now as teenagers, and pretty soon they're out the house. So I can't miss this moment. This is a time bucket this is a season that will end, right? And I need to get off this autopilot of drilling down to the nth degree of confidence about what production is going to be in a month. And I need to go and spend this time here with my daughters,
Yeah. So maybe one thing is then making a list of future regrets if you don't change.
I think that's great. I think that, the thing I like, I in the book, I suggest what I call time bucketing your life, those time buckets, just taking out a piece of paper. You don't have to get it perfect the first time, and just write down the things you want. And you could shorten it. You could make it 1 year over this 1 year. What are the experiences I really want to have? This over the next 5 years, what do I really want to have? And from so let's say you're 30 to 35, 35 to 40, sprinkle it, right? Come back to it again, right? And just think about it. And okay, then you have it. Let's say it's I really wanted to run the Boston Marathon. This is an experience I want to have in my life, and I want to get married, and I got to do a lot of training. So let's break that down. How much training, whatever, this and that. You know what? I'm going to actually go, there's a specific method for training for a marathon, but I'm actually going to go run 2 miles today, right? You build up your stamina, et cetera. But you have to, when we were younger, we were very much connected with the things we wanted and what we wanted out of our life, right? I want to act. I want to be a fireman. I want to go do this. I want to whatever. I want to backpack through Europe. I mean, it was just you didn't think in terms of dollars. You thought in terms of experiences, and it was very natural, right?
It's true. I would say the day my youth ended was the day I started thinking in terms of dollars.
Right. And so and you went into the world and you says, okay, I have this field. I kind of enjoy this field. I have an aptitude for it. I want to make money. And with this money, I'm going to do these experiences, right? The 17-year-old in me, the 18-year-old in me, whatever. Somewhere along the line, we forgot. We got disconnected from them. And our taste changed too. And we spend so much time working and hustling and worrying and Twitter battles about politics and blah, blah, blah. We forget what we want. And it takes work to reconnect to those things. And so, I strongly advise people to reconnect with themselves, right? About what experiences they want to have out of life, like when they were 17 or 18. A lot of people, they get to retirement, they don't fucking know what to do. And they're depressed, or they go back to work or something. And I was like, that's because you spent your whole life working on X and not yourself and your hobbies. That's why you don't know what to do. You're a robot. You've turned yourself into a money-making robot, right?
Yeah. And so let's say someone is that. How do they, and they've been doing it for 30 years, so that's their habit. How do they find out? I mean, I often tell people, well, just look at the last 50 pictures you took on Instagram, and that gives you some clues. But how do people figure out, I don't even know what I want?
You realize it's going to take time, right? You got good and you've created this habit over 30 years. You're not going to instantaneously go, boom, this is what I want to do. I want to skateboard and be a skater or whatever it is. Like, I'm going to go deliver water in South Sudan. I don't think that's going to happen instantaneously, like an epiphany, like you fell off your horse on the way to Damascus or something like that. I think it's going to be, something where it's going to be taking time and focusing, silencing everything, going in a room, meditating, thinking about it. Like, what would I enjoy? What kind of randomness could expose me? How could I get exposed to random things to see what I can enjoy? Life is discovery. You don't know what you want. You discover what you want, right? So as a kid, you discovered this and you're like, shit, I want to be a fireman. That shit is cool as shit. You know what I mean? Like, it's the same thing as an adult. Like, I don't know what I like. I have to discover what I like,
Well, and I like what you said about the marathon, where you might not do the typical training, but you might say, oh, I'm going to run 2 miles today. And then you might decide, that wasn't so much fun. So that's what I call experiments. Like, you could do little experiments to figure out, like I might make a list for the next year and it just might be too big. But then I can make a list of, here's how I can experiment with each item, and I'm going to find items I don't like by doing these experiments.
It's important, but it's not a test and you're not being graded. So like doing these experiments, is getting out there, taking the time to think about it, to focus on it, to try. That's the process, right? Like if you were working for me and how I got you working like a slave and never taking the vacation that you were supposed to take, right? Never taking your time off or whatever, is created a habit and you're a great employee. But you're not really that great to yourself, to the vision of your life, to the things you like, to the experiments that you should be running for your life. Like, yeah, you've done great experiments for our company. This one didn't work. That didn't work. This one was great. This one, whatever. But you're not doing that for your own life.
Your point earlier is people don't realize this, but maybe they're realizing this now because of the lockdown. You can switch careers. Money is a bucket too in this list of buckets. And you could decide, you know what? I could still make money, but maybe I need 2/3 per year of what I'm making, or half, or double for a year or two, whatever.
Yeah, I mean, you've heard of the FIRE people, right?
No.
There's the financial independence, retire early people, and their whole shtick is like, they almost got it perfect, right? Their whole shtick is like, I don't need all this fancy car. I don't need this. They really get in touch with what they really want out of life, right? I don't need these ego trappings. These are the things I really want. They figure it out. They save like mad, okay? And then they retire early, right? I disagree with them. The part I disagree with them is that they're delaying experiences past their due date too often, right? The FIRE people are. But what they do have right is that they do take the time to get in touch about what they really want out of life, what makes them happy, what they want their journey to be, right? And so, they switch careers, they go here, they move out of towns, they go whatever to have a fulfilling life and not be addicted to the money or the status of money or et cetera. And I take it the other way. I'm like, look, I love the money because money isn't for money. I don't like money for money's sake. It's fucking useless. It's for the experiences. I have an experience lined up for every dollar I make. You know what I mean? Like, it's going to something, whether it be a charity, my kids, myself, a trip up the coast or whatever. But to earn a dollar that I'm not going to spend is ludicrous to me. Right?
Yeah.
Like,
and there's an interesting point too, which is that you can't. There comes a point you can't tell the difference between a billionaire and someone with, say, I don't know, some amount, a tiny percentage of that. Like, you could live the same life of a billionaire without any difference in lifestyle, even though you might have 1% of the money or 0.5% of the money.
Correct. I mean, and this is what I tell people also. There's two things. One is that every exotic place I've been, every experience I've been, I could look around and see somebody with 1/1000th the money enjoying themselves just the same, taking in the same view, and sometimes even having a better experience because they're not as coddled and removed from the people, right? They might have a richer experience. And I talk about that in my book about my friend backpacking. The other thing is I tell people is that you could never pay me enough to be Warren Buffett in his life. Right? Like, I'm just like, no shot, right? Like that does not seem like an adventurous life. Great guy, nice person. To me, it's like a monumental waste of a ride, you know?
So what do you worry about? Like in this whole situation right now, do you worry that there could be so much unrest and cataclysmic political or geopolitical change that your money is worthless, your bank's shut down, and you know, I don't know, shit happens?
I mean, there's, I think the United States and the world is always in crisis, right? If you go to any period or decade, there's always crises. There's Vietnam War, Cold War. When I was a kid, I used to literally, I guess maybe it was the media or the hype, or maybe it was the real situation. I was like, is a nuclear bomb going to go off one day? In the 80s, back with
Yeah.
Reagan and stuff like that. And so, I mean, there's just one crisis after another. And I'm not saying that these crises can't happen and my money can be useless, et cetera. It's something in the back of my head to have some sort of insurance plan on the middle of survival. But, I've been busted a couple times in my life and I've enjoyed it, right? Like I've had great times then, great times when I'm rich as well, and my thing is like, whatever resources I have, I'm going to use them to my best of my ability, right? To get what I choose in a life. And that's what I want people to do. Is like, I don't care if you have like $1 in the bank or $0 in the bank. You still got your time, your health. You're still breathing. Let's make non-autopilot decisions to get the maximum out of this situation that you have going on right now.
Do you ever worry about your relevance in life? So kind of like your imprint on the world. For instance, you wrote this book, presumably because you have a message and you want your name out there and you want your voice heard.
I mean, I wrote the book because I've encountered and seen people with a life unfulfilled and regrets, right? And the concept of too late really fucks with me. Excuse my French, but it really, really, really fucks with my soul. That times period, and I've experienced this having kids, right? And I talk about it in the book about watching certain movies with them that were great. And, they'd want to watch it again and again. I'm like, no, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And then the time came where I was like, hey, let's watch Pooh's Heffalump movie with my daughter. And they're like, no, Dad, that's a baby movie. I don't want to watch that, whatever. And I was like, holy shit. Had I known this date, if you told me December 15th, whatever date it was, that they will no longer like this movie, I might have watched it 10 more times than I had and then savored those moments a little bit better. Or college, or, the college professor that you don't see, or the friend you don't see anymore. The last time you went outside and played with your friends, people heard that statement before. And so the biggest thing that worries me is being out of balance and not taking advantage of the things I have around me, right? And so COVID kind of, I think, is shooken myself up and a lot of people up, right? They're kind of like, holy shit. And so after getting shaken up, I was like, okay, all right, what activities, this is a time period, what activities can I do now? Well, I can go hiking. I can go driving up the coast of California with my girlfriend. I can spend time with my daughters and try and get close to them, much to their dismay, right? They're like, Dad, you're so weird. Nobody hangs out with their dad this much. What, Dad? That type
How
of
old
thing.
are your kids?
13 and 16. And so, I just took advantage of what resources I had, which the resources were, I had a lot of time with my children, right? I had the ability to walk around. And then when I was in St. Thomas, I had the ability to go on my boat and go and enjoy nature and connect with people. And then my family, I was like, oh, my family now wants to talk to everybody because they can't. I mean, relatives that I normally don't talk to, we're on Zoom calls, chitty-chatting, right? So that was great, taking advantage of that. And so, that's my biggest fear is wasting my life, wasting my resources. And so to not waste my life and waste my resources, I have to really pause, get off autopilot, get off my phone, think about it. It's like, okay, what do you really want? And that's scary. Like, I'm the fat coach on the sidelines. Like, trust me, I wrote the book about this and it's still very hard. Like, you have to disconnect and go, what do I want? All right, what resources, what can I do to take steps towards those to those goals? What can I do now?
So
know what I
you
mean?
do that every day, or like when's the last time you said, you know what, I really want to have this experience, and so you started aiming for a particular experience?
It was actually this trip to Croatia was like the last the big on the big note. It was this trip to Croatia, right? It was like I gotta get out. I gotta find a place in the world that I could go to, that I can enjoy, that I can take my friends and my daughters, and that I can explore. And now's the time. I don't care what it costs or whatever. I don't know if we're gonna have a third wave and that we're gonna die. If this thing's gonna like infect our brains, there's all kinds of information coming back and forth. I have no clue. You know what I mean? I don't know if we're going to have riots and wars and the money's going to be useless. All I know is I have today. I have the capital. I'm getting older. You know what I mean? And I was like, I want to take this trip. And it was also the trip I took to Aspen to go hiking. And I was like, oh, I'm going to go hiking. Should I hike Ajax with David? I was with David Goggins. And I was like, yeah, I need to hike Ajax with Goggins. I'm out of shape, but it's not like I'm going to be more in shape 20 years from now. So like now's the time, right?
But did he obliterate you? Like, were you ashamed to be hiking next to the perfect specimen of human?
Yeah. That was, I told David, I said, listen, this is a leisurely hike, right? Like he's like, okay, I'll go run a bunch of miles beforehand and do my business. And then I'll come in and do a leisure hike. So, David ran umpteen miles, right? And then he was very kind to go very slow up the mountain with us. And it was great because you just don't want to look like a complete pansy, you know what I mean, in front of David. So I wouldn't quit, and we got up to the top, and it was a great experience, and I'm glad I did it. And here I am, cashing in on the memory dividend of hiking Ajax on this show right now. I'm cashing in on that right now. That experience of hiking, huffing and puffing, almost dying, 169 heart rate, but I got to the top.
That's great. It's such a great analogy. And you're right. I think it can be applied at any age and to any income group and can get people to start thinking if they haven't been maximize. Let's say the stock market typically returns whatever you want to say, 5 or 6%, whatever. Memory dividends should probably be, return similar or more because they're less risky.
Let's put it this way. I can access the memory bank infinitely. So once you make a deposit into the experience bank, right, the bank of memories, you can withdraw infinitely. Right?
I love this analogy.
And so I get to withdraw from that forever, right? I'm still withdrawing from my first kiss. You know what I mean? And I'll be 80 and I'll withdraw from that, right? Like with the birth of my daughters, I'll be withdrawing from that forever until my brain doesn't work anymore, right? And other things, the time I had to sleep on a train when I didn't have any money to get home, right? And I was working, I wanted to be, I didn't have any money. I was busted as a screen clerk and I had to sleep on a train because I didn't have money and I was going to hop the turnstile, but they had cops there and I didn't want to, you know what I mean? I couldn't do it. So I just slept on a train and went to work the next day, right? Like I accessed that memory, even though it was bad at the time, all the time. It's great conversation material. People love that story, and, when you invest in the stock market, you could get a couple withdrawals. That's about it. You know what I mean? So I tell people invest in experiences early because you get to, with the dividends often add up more than the original experience. Let's say the original experience was like, let's say, call it 10 experience points. I'm just making up a number, right? But the dividends from that might be 100. Or 25 or 12, right?
Right, because you could say maybe every time you tell a story, it's like a half an experience point. If you tell a story 200 times, boom, 1,000% return.
Or you might be laying in your bed thinking about a night. Listen, this is I don't know. This is a little off color.
That's okay. We have a soft porn podcast here.
Okay. So I was just gonna say, like, anybody who's ever masturbated truly understands the memory dividend. You think about it, right? Like you get the memory dividend, right? Anybody who's ever masturbated to a prior experience.
What's the equivalent money thing? What's the equivalent of money? It's probably not an equivalent.
No, there's not an equivalent. But I'm just saying, like, you get the memory dividend. You're getting pleasure from a prior experience, right? And so but companies cash in on this memory dividend. Like there's been studies done where they put fMRI on people's heads and see what areas their brains light up when they do stuff. And when they're drinking Coca-Cola, not only are you tasting the Coca-Cola, but you're tasting the memories of every single Coke commercial. Those brain centers light up every time you drink a Coke. That's why Coke tastes better when you know it's a Coke, and Pepsi tastes better when it's a blind taste test, because you're consuming all the memories of I like the world, da, 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 in perfect harmony. You're drinking that, right? And so people should take advantage of it. Facebook and technology companies are taking advantage of the memory dividend. You post up these pictures, et cetera, and they give you, remember this 3 years ago, and then it's a picture, and then you go and tell your friend, like, hey, remember that time this picture just came up, and they get this activity, and you become a daily active user.
Because that's fascinating, actually.
They're cashing in on your memory dividends, right? They're cashing in on your memories, and your activity spikes, and you call your friends and blah, blah, blah. And meanwhile, while you're on the page and sharing with your friend, an ad pops up. Well, lo and behold, Google's does the same thing. My Google Photos goes 5 years ago on this date, and I'm just like, oh. And I love them for that because it sparks the memory, and I get to enjoy it. But they built a business on that. They are cashing in on your memory dividend. And what I tell people is, listen, they're multi-billion, on their way to $1 trillion companies. Cash in yourself. And you know how you cash in yourself? You have fucking experiences. You invest in experiences now, and then you can cash in for the rest of your life.
I love this. This is great. This is basically how I've lived my life the past 10, 15 years, and it's worked largely. There's good experiences, there's bad experiences, but they all have memory dividends. So that's a good way to put it. I love the analogy.
Yeah, and so like when you're delaying gratification, I'm not saying that you shouldn't delay gratification for certain events. I'm saying that you get to weigh these things. It's like, wow, do I go on 2 trips 10 years from now, or do I go on 1 trip now, but have like 10 years of memory dividend associated with that trip and experience or whatever? Who knows? Depending on what your age are, maybe 2 trips later. And if you're 20, it might be 2 trips later. But if you're 50, 60, 70, it might be 1 trip now, buddy. 1 trip now. I don't have the energy 2 trips later.
Well, listen, Bill Perkins, it's been so enlightening having you on the podcast. We have so many coincidences in common. One is you made a movie that was directed by a friend of mine, my wife's ex-brother-in-law, actually, John Stockwell.
John Stockwell, yeah.
You play poker, you play chess, all my favorite activities.
Yes.
My experiences are super cheap. I just like games. So games, podcasting, and writing. So the book is Die with Zero. I really believe in this philosophy. You should read it and see all the different methods and philosophies and ways to figure this out in your own life. And by Bill Perkins. Bill, thanks so much for coming on the podcast.
Thanks for having me on. It's been great.